My name is Eleanor Whitman. I am 68 years old, a widow of 9 years, a retired school librarian, and the mother of 3 grown children. I live alone in a small, quiet house in Columbus, Ohio. The house is paid off, the roses bloom every spring, and the rooms are clean. Too clean. Clean in a way that feels like no one is expected to come. I used to say birthdays mattered less as you got older. That was a lie I told myself because it hurt to admit the truth. They mattered more. They reminded you that you were still here, that someone noticed the years you had lived and the love you had given so freely. A week before my birthday, April 14, I circled the date on the calendar with a blue pen. I didn't need the reminder. My body already knew. It remembered every birthday before it, waking early to bake cakes, tying ribbons, wiping frosting from small faces, listening to laughter echo through the house. Back then, the house had a heartbeat. I cleaned slowly that week, resting when my knees ached. I washed the good tablecloth with the embroidered flowers and ironed it carefully. I went to the grocery store and bought things I hadn't purchased in years: fresh herbs, a small roast, real vanilla extract. I stood in the aisle longer than necessary, wondering if my children still liked the food they loved when they were young. I baked a cake on Monday and wrapped it tightly before placing it in the freezer. I told myself I'd take it to church if no one came. Waste not, what not? My mother's voice echoed in my head. On Tuesday, I hinted. I told my oldest son, Mark, that I was thinking of making pot roast over the weekend. He sounded distracted, a television blaring behind him. He said he had to run and promised to call later. He didn't. On Wednesday, I texted my daughter, Lisa, asking if she was working Saturday. Hours passed before she replied that it was a busy week and she'd let me know. She never did. On Thursday, I called my youngest, Daniel. He didn't answer. I left a cheerful voicemail, practiced so my voice wouldn't tremble, and sat with the phone in my hand long after the call ended. On my birthday morning, I woke before the alarm. The house was still. I lay in bed waiting for my phone to buzz. It didn't. I showered, dressed in a blue sweater my husband once loved, styled my hair and put on lipstick, not because I expected company, but because I wanted to feel like myself. At 9, I checked my phone. At 10, again. At 11, I started cooking, telling myself they were planning a surprise. Cooking always calmed me. I chopped vegetables, browned the roast, and let it simmer until the kitchen smelled like warmth and patience. I set the table for 4, one place for each child and one for me. After a moment, I added a 5th just in case someone brought a spouse or grandchild. Time passed loudly. Noon, 1 o'clock, 2. I checked my phone until the screen blurred. At 3, I took the cake from the freezer and set it on the counter. At 4, my optimism thinned. At 5, the food was ready. At 6, I stood at the window watching cars pass, neighbors wave, life continue. At 7, the truth settled gently but firmly. They weren't coming. I didn't cry at first. I wrapped the food carefully and placed it in the refrigerator, as if it still mattered who would eat it. When I finally sat on the edge of my bed, the tears came quietly. I lit the candles on the cake and blew them out alone. The next morning, the house felt heavier. I went for a walk, hoping fresh air would help untangle my thoughts. When I returned, I nearly collided with a young delivery driver holding a box. He checked the label and asked if I was Eleanor Whitman. I signed for the package and laughed when he wished me a belated happy birthday. He noticed the surprise on my face and said sometimes birthdays are printed on labels. Then he looked at me more closely and asked if I was okay. No one had asked me that in a long time. I sat on the front step and told him the truth. I told him about the dinner, the waiting, the silence. He listened without checking his phone, without rushing. Before he left, he asked if I liked chocolate or vanilla. When he returned a short while later with a cupcake and a single candle, I covered my mouth, overwhelmed. He said no one should blow out candles alone.
We sang quietly. I made a wish. His name was Alex. After that day, he started stopping by once a week. Sometimes he brought groceries. Sometimes he just talked. I taught him how to cook. He fixed things around the house. Slowly, the rooms remembered how to be alive. Months later, my children called again. They needed things. They were surprised to see someone else at my table, someone who treated me like I mattered. I don't hate my children. Life gets busy, time slips away, but love shows up. On my next birthday, the table was full, not because I waited, but because I allowed room for people who chose to come. I finally understood something I wish I had learned sooner. Family isn't always blood. Family is presence. And sometimes the person who changes your life is just passing by with a box in their hands.